Why do the gods have human form? The great illusion that defines us. Prologue. The necessity of form. Man is an animal cornered by the immensity of the unknown. Faced with the silent abyss of the cosmos, the impersonal coldness of death, the brute force of lightning, or the fury of a storm-tossed sea, our consciousness trembles. We cannot conceive the formless. Our brain, marvelously limited, evolved to recognize patterns, faces, intentions. We see clouds as dragons, constellations as heroes, and in the darkness of the cave, we project shadows that move like prey or predators. This is the first truth, the most ancestral. We give form to what has none because the formless is unbearable. The void, chaos, is not only incomprehensible, it is psychologically intolerable. To negotiate with the incomprehensible, to attempt to explain, predict, or even pacify the forces that surpass us, we perform culture's primordial act, anthropomorphization. We transform abstract concepts, natural forces, and existential fears into entities with faces, voices, desires, and wills. We create gods in our own image and likeness, not out of arrogance, but out of existential desperation. It was the only language we possessed, and in the very act of creating them, something fundamental occurred. We became attached to our own creation. We confused the map with the territory, the statue with the divinity, the myth with reality. This attachment defined us. It gave us art, morality, war, and solace. Yet it also imprisoned us within a narrative from which centuries later, bold thinkers would try to awaken us. First, the deconstruction begins. Euhemerus and the profane revelation, 4th century BCE. While Greece worshipped its Olympian gods, an obscure thinker from Mycenae named Euhemerus proposed an idea so heretical it would echo for millennia. In his lost work, Hiera Anagraphi, Sacred Inscription, he did not debate the nature of the gods. He simply changed their ontological category. The Euhemerist thesis, Euhemerism. The gods were not eternal cosmic forces or metaphysical archetypes. They were purely and simply extraordinary human kings, heroes, or founders from the remote past. Zeus, a great king of Crete, a powerful and wise tribal leader. Aphrodite, perhaps a princess of extraordinary beauty and social influence. Athena, a brilliant inventor or strategist. After their deaths, whether out of gratitude, fear, or the political interests of their successors, these figures were gradually divinized. Their deeds were exaggerated through oral tradition, their powers magnified by legend until they became the supernatural beings of worship. The temple was, at its core, a glorified mausoleum. The myth, a biography distorted by time. Psychological and political impact. Euhemerus's genius lay in recognizing religion's social function of control. By asserting that the gods had once been great rulers, he implicitly declared, the current religious order legitimizes the existing political order. The cult of Zeus validated the authority of the king, who claimed descent from or representation of the god. Euhemerus offered a materialist critique of religion. It arose from earthly power and served that power. The gods had human form because ultimately they were glorified humans. Divinity was a projection of political power onto the heavens, only to descend again as sacred justification. This was the first great demystifying arrow. It suggested we look not upward toward the gods in search of transcendence, but backward into history and sideways toward structures of power. 2. Man as artificer. Ludwig Feuerbach and the projection of essence, 19th century. Leap ahead more than 2 millennia. Europe had been transformed by the Enlightenment and reason, yet the question of religion remained central. Enter Ludwig Feuerbach, 1804-1872, the philosopher who turned the theological equation upside down with brutal clarity. Feuerbach's thesis, articulated in The Essence of Christianity, 1841. The famous phrase that encapsulates centuries of rationalist critique is not literally Feuerbach's, yet he is its greatest exponent. Man created God in his own image and likeness, not the reverse. For Feuerbach, theology is in truth disguised anthropology. Everything we attribute to God, love, justice, wisdom, omnipotence, are human attributes at their purest and most exalted, alienated from us, and projected onto an imaginary external being. Omnipotence, it is the human desire for power, the yearning to overcome our physical and mortal limitations. Infinite love, it is the human longing for perfect connection and unconditional love, which we rarely experience. Perfect justice, it is our frustration with earthly injustice and our desire for a final, impartial tribunal. The mechanism of alienation. Man, Feuerbach argued, empties himself. He extracts what is best and most powerful within himself, his species' essence, and deposits this essence into a fictitious being in the heavens. The result is tragic. Man becomes poorer, having stripped himself of his finest qualities, and submits to the very phantom he created. Religion, therefore, is the dream of the human mind, but a dream in which it sees itself as impotent and small before its own magnified creation. Why human form? The answer is straightforward. We can only project what we know. Our consciousness is human. Our ideals are human. Our fears are human. The absolute we create cannot be a cube or an abstract mathematical equation. It must be an idealized mirror of ourselves, a superman, a cosmic father, a celestial mother. The human form of the gods is the involuntary confession of their origin. They are fashioned from the clay of our yearnings and our terrors. Feuerbach did not wish to destroy religion out of hatred, but to reclaim its richness. If God is projected love, let us bring that love back into human relationships. If God is projected justice, let us build a just society here on earth. Salvation lay in dissolving the theological illusion and realizing human essence on the terrestrial plane. 3. The murder of the cosmic father. Friedrich Nietzsche and the void left by God's death, 19th century. If Feuerbach declared that man had created God, Friedrich Nietzsche, 1844-1900, announced with the dramatic flair of an atheist prophet that modern man had murdered that very creation. The most famous declaration, in aphorism 125 of The Gay Science, 1882, Nietzsche introduces the parable of the madman who, in broad daylight, goes to the marketplace carrying a lit lantern and cries out, "I seek God, I seek God." When the unbelieving atheists there mock him, the madman delivers his unforgettable words, "Where is God? We have killed him, you and I. All of us are his murderers. God is dead, God remains dead, and we have killed him." What did Nietzsche mean? God is dead is not a triumphant cry of atheism, but a profound and terrifying cultural diagnosis. The death of God signifies the collapse of the absolute metaphysical and moral foundations that had sustained Western civilization for over 2 millennia. It is not that an old man in the sky had expired. It is that belief in an objective cosmic order, in a transcendent meaning of life, in a good and evil decreed by a supreme authority, had become untenable for the modern, enlightened scientific consciousness. Who are the murderers? Ourselves. Science, critical reason, skepticism, historicism, which viewed religions as products of their time, and even progress itself, all gradually eroded the foundations of faith until the edifice collapsed. Modern man, proud of his reason, pulled the rug out from under his own feet. The abyssal consequences. This is the core of Nietzsche's warning. The murderer does not yet grasp the gravity of his act. How shall we console ourselves, the murderers of all murderers? That which was holiest and mightiest of all that the world has yet owned has bled to death under our knives. Do we not feel the breath of empty space? Has it not grown colder? Is not night continually closing in on us? God's death creates a vacuum of meaning. If there is no cosmic stage with a divine script, then life itself has no objective meaning. This void may lead to passive nihilism, despair, the belief that everything is permitted, apathy. The human form of the gods is now seen as a symptom of our former weakness, our childish need for a father who would tell us what to do, what to value, how to live. Nietzsche's challenge. After the murder, man cannot simply turn back. He now faces a Herculean and unprecedented task to become the creator of his own values. If there is no God to grant meaning, the higher man, the Übermensch, the Overman, must have the courage to create meaning from his own will. It is a terrible and liberating burden. The human form of the old gods dissolves, and in its place, Nietzsche proposes that man himself sculpt himself into the form of his own autonomous earthly ideal. Epilogue. From forms to force, from heaven to earth. The journey of anthropomorphization is the journey of human consciousness. At first it was fear and awe. From the formless forces of chaos and night, we extracted faces and names so we could speak to the incomprehensible. We created nature gods, Zeus the lightning, Poseidon the sea. Then we socialized the sacred. With Euhemerus, we suspected these faces might be masks worn by ancient rulers, and that religion served power. Next, we looked into the mirror. With Feuerbach, we understood the psychological mechanism. The gods are our own essence, alienated and worshipped. The human form is proof of projection. Finally, we shattered the mirror. With Nietzsche, we embraced the act of patricide. The death of God is the moment when humanity, having destroyed its grand projection, stands face to face with the abyss of its freedom and the arduous task of being the sole source of light in an indifferent universe. The gods had human faces because at every stage we needed an interlocutor. First, to beg for a good harvest or victory in war. Then, to justify kings and empires. Later, to dialogue with the loftiest and darkest parts of our own souls. And finally, to have a clear target when the time came to declare our tragic, solitary adulthood. Thus, the human form of the gods was far more than an artistic choice. It was an existential symptom, a giant mirror raised toward the heavens, in which, for millennia, we gazed without realizing we were seeing, in every age, a different and revealing portrait of ourselves. The true revelation lies not on Olympus, but in the act of having built it, and in the even braver act of leaving it uninhabited.